called to be. If you're tuning in this podcast, you are called to be what? Called to be a faithful parent, a parent full of faith, a parent who's discipling their children. And this month, we're going to be looking at the trait of persevering. Persevering, we are called to persevere. And when I think of this, certainly we're called to persevere as parents, and there's a trial as parents that we have, but really what we're called to be is parents who teach our kids how to persevere, who teach our kids how to handle pressure, who teach our kids how to handle trials, who teach our kids how to handle suffering, but how to handle it faithfully in their relationship with God. And so how do we handle trials in our life? Trials that we just haven't quit on, right? And how are we going to teach our kids how to handle trials when life is hard, when things are hard, not to be people who walk away, but people who remain faithfully in their relationship with Jesus. So how do we do that, parents? How to be? I want to share with you 3 things that I've realized in my life, 3 things I'm trying to teach my kids, and 3 things that biblically are just true. When life is hard and when our kids are going through hard stuff, right? How do we teach them how to persevere? How do we teach them how to endure? How do we teach them how to work out with God? Prayer. That might be obvious, but let's talk about that, right? Allowing our kids to be real with God and teaching them to talk to God about their trial and to communicate with Him and to pray that prayer that Jesus taught us to pray and prayed Himself. Father, I don't like this. This isn't my will, but your will be done, right? How do we continue to trust in God through it, and how do we teach our kids to pray through it, right? In the Bible, there's a whole section of lamenting, right? God, I don't like this. I don't like this, right? Can we be real with God? Can you and I be real and show our kids that, right? It's not all rainbows and flowers and candy canes, right? That's not life. Jesus said in this world you're going to have trouble, but take heart, have courage, for I have overcome it, right? How do we live in that truth that the struggle is real, right? In prayer, how do we teach our kids how to pray through trials? And I would encourage you to teach them how to pray, right? Just like Jesus prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? God, your will be done, not mine, but God, this is my will. I want this cup removed from me, but I'm trusting you, right? To be honest with God through it, right? To have heartfelt, true prayers, not just prayers that just speak words out, but prayers that speak our hearts out. Second thing I want to encourage you to do as parents is this, to set the example of perseverance, right, to our kids, but get my kids, and this is what I do, right? Other people have gone through this. Other people are going through this. There's something called the communion of saints that the scriptures talk about. Hebrews chapter 11, looking at people who've gone before us and knowing that they persevered, knowing that they made it through it, right? And there's people, I know my one son has an athletic injury, Jaden Ivey, a Detroit Pistons player, right? He's got an athletic injury, and he's talking about how he's dealing with it in his faith, and that he still knows he's a child of God, but he knows that God's working through this somehow, some way. And for my son to hear Jaden Ivey talk that way, right? What a blessing, right? For us to turn to the scriptures and see different people that have gone through things, right? Our kids aren't alone, and I hope they know that there's a communion of saints to encourage them. And so we got prayer, right? Talking to God, lamenting, being real with Him, submitting to His will, as hard as that is, but we're trusting you, God. And then we got the communion of saints. And then I would just say this, how to teach our kids how to persevere, right? For us to set the example, for us to be real with our kids about the struggles that we had in persevering. I think the worst thing that you and I can do to our kids is put on a facade, and it's called hypocrisy, right? If we act like everything is fine, everything is easy, right? Because it's not, and certainly we want that to be true for our kids, that their life is going to be easier than our life. But the reality of it is it's not. And so the struggle is real, is something that we can talk to our kids about, that how we've gone through it and how we are going through it. Our kids are watching us, right? When we walk away from things, are we doing that faithfully? Have we worked through it faithfully? Or have we just quit? Have we just not persevered, right? How do we deal with that? And if we have just quit, right, how do we deal with that? And how do we confess that and say, I wish I wouldn't have done that? Right? And I talked to Jesus about that, and thank God for His forgiveness, right? But I'm learning how not to quit. I'm learning how to persevere in hard relationships, right? In hard work situations, right? What do we do when life is hard? Our kids are watching us, Right? Perseverance isn't an easy word. Perseverance in and of itself, and that word tells us that there is a trial, right? And so praying, looking at the communion of saints, seeing others, and also setting the example for our kids, right? And certainly for you and me, as we're called to be parents, I want to encourage you to pray. I want to encourage you to have holy habits in the scriptures, right? Seeing those who've gone before us and just being real, right? I love Jesus because he was real, right? He didn't mess with words. He told us how things were going to be. He told us the truth, and he's continuing to tell us the truth, right? Truth with grace. Thank you, Jesus, for your grace. Thank you for your truth. Thank you for telling me what I need to do, how I need to obey you, right? And thank you for your forgiveness, right? Know this, parents, you are forgiven, right? But my hope and my prayer for you and for me is that we'll be the parents that God has called us to be for the sake of our children, and God is calling us to raise kids in such a way to we're teaching them how to persevere. May Jesus bless you this month as you live out this trait.